machines are already installed. One is Meta 2, Meta Exploitable 2, which has Linux server and a FTP port is open. So I'm already logged in. You also know the ID password. You can check it out. I'm checking the IP address for performing some attacks. So this is my IP address, and the IP address is 192.168.216.129. This is the IP address of Meta 2. If we check out the IP addresses of Meta 3, then you have to open the machine. This machine is basically deployed on Ubuntu. So Ubuntu server is installed in this lab environment. You can easily download it with using Google. In this machine also, there is a FTP port open. So you can log in with that ID. And also, this is the password. So I'm successfully logged in into that machine. Let's check out the IP. So IP address is 192.168.216.130. 130 is the IP address. And for Meta 2, we have 129. And this is our machine where we need to run some tests on. So first, we will launch nmap command to make sure that FTP port is open. So I am running a simple nmap command. You already know the possible commands for nmap. So 216.129. Checking with default scanning top 1000 TCP ports. So here is the information. FTP port is open on that machine, Meta 2, and this version is available. If we check out or if we scan the Meta 3, then let's check, let's scan the Meta 3 as well. So I am scanning the Meta 3 in a new terminal. So nmap space -s capital V, then followed by IP address, which is 192.168.216.130. In this machine, a FTP port is also open. So now we will use our strategies to basically penetrate this FTP port using different methods. So all these steps we already talk about. Let's perform the FTP penetration testing. So as you all know that FTP is a file transfer protocol or network protocol that is used to transfer files between clients and a server using a TCP IP network, right? And FTP is one of the oldest method for exchanging files over network. So whenever a server is created or a network is designed, most of the time to transfer some files, FTP is used. And FTP basically works on two mechanisms. One is FTP client, one is FTP server. So basically, if you see in the diagram, a user that is using FTP client protocol and sharing some files using a disk, you initiate a TCP/IP connection, control connection, and successfully can share the files between FTP servers or FTP client. So if this mechanism is applied, FTP has or FTP use basically two types of channels. One is control channel that is used to send commands or responses, port number 21, and a data channel that is used to transfer data files running on port number 20. So we can say that FTP is basically running on port number 20 as well as port number 21. Port number 20 is known as FTP port, but for data channel, and port number 21 is known as control channel, right? And in FTP protocol, two different types of mode we basically operate using FTP. One is active mode. The clients open a random port and the servers connect back to it for data transfer. And one is passive mode, where a client needs to connect for data transfer, right? So if you want to test FTP, so what basically we can do, or if we talk about how what is the common use of FTP. So in web applications for uploading and downloading website files or web data, we use FTP. For transferring large databases across system, we use FTP. For backup services, we use FTP. Or with some public file distributions, like in public you see some random downloads, that is also used by FTP port, or that is handled by FTP port on the server, right? So if whenever we encounter with any FTP port open, what strategies we can take or how we can penetrate a FTP port. So the very first thing we do is banner grabbing. So banner grabbing is our first process to particularly penetrate the FTP port. And if we talk about what is banner grabbing, or how banner grabbing is performed, so normally we use two tools to banner grab. One is Telnet and second one is Netcat. Netcat is a listener for your networking responses, or Telnet is also a port or a command line tool installed in your Linux to basically initiate some connections for remote host. So the very first thing we perform is banner grabbing. And what banner grabbing is, if you are familiar about the ethical hacking, or the if you ever read about the certified ethical hacking, in footprinting, banner grabbing is used, and this it is a process, it is a technique that is used to collect information about network services that is running on open port. We already know about the services running on that our particular FTP port using Nmap, but if you want to collect some more information, then you can perform the banner grabbing technique, right? So this process basically helps you to identify software versions, operating systems, and vulnerabilities. Also, you are doing this task using Nmap. So Nmap has the compatibility to perform banner grabbing. But if you want to perform banner grabbing using some another tools, then Telnet and Netcat is available to help you, right? What is the purpose and importance of banner grabbing? So we need to identify the FTP version and its vulnerabilities, because in FTP port, some of the services are installed, right? Uh, when I when I run Nmap on my Meta 2 or Meta 3, we see that different services are running on. In Meta 2, a VS FTPD service is running on, and in Meta 3, we have Pro FTPD services running on. And if you look up to the version in Meta 2, we have VS FTPD 2.3.4, and in Meta 3, where we have Pro FTPD, so we have 1.3.5. These are the different versions we have in FTP. So you can clearly understand that in FTP port, multiple services can be installed with a different version. So banner grabbing will help you to identify those services as well as the versions. Once you identify the versions or services, you check it for the outdated versions, because whenever a software is exploited or software or services is exploited, a new version is released. But sometimes some of the misconfiguration happens on the server side, or maybe developer forget to update the service version. So that's why an attacker can make connection to these ports and then can exploit it, or retrieve some data. So in all these process, banner grabbing is your friend. Banner grabbing will help you to identify all those, right? So we have two tools available. I will show you in my lab. First is telnet. You can easily launch the command telnet with your target IP and port number 21. This is a simple command you can use. And if you want to use the netcat command, then you can type nc space hyphen v for verbosity and target IP and then port number 21. So telnet basically sends a welcome message revealing its software and version information if your connection uh, successfully initiated. Or if you launch the netcat, then netcat is also connect to the port number 21 and capture the FTP server banner. So let's first check these two methods, and then we will move further. So as we already know, our IP addresses of our vulnerable machines or our testing servers. So I'm launching a new terminal to check if we can capture more information that we are capturing using Nmap. So I'm launching Telnet. Telnet first. Telnet is pre-installed, so you don't need to install it in your Kali Linux. Then provide the target IP. So I'm giving one by one, 192.168.216.129. This is the IP of our Meta 2. Then port number 21. Hit enter, and you see that you will get a VS FTPD service name and also the version also. VSFTPD 2.3.4. And this telnet is trying to connect with that IP, successfully connected, and a 220 status is appeared, right? Suppose what if we launch this telnet on our second machine. The IP is 192.168.216.130 and port number is 21. So connection successfully established, and we receive a pro FTPD information, that is the service installed, and the version number is 1.3.5, right? This is the server that is or service that is installed on the FTP. So telnet basically helps you. Telnet helps you to identify or showing you the information if in case Nmap won't work. So you can additionally use these two tools as well. So let's run the netcat also. So I'm running the netcat one using nc space hyphen v followed by IP address of your target system 216.129 and followed by the port number. Here is information is also retrieved VSFTPD 2.3.4. That is the version. NC netcat is basically trying to look up for the host name, and also this meta 2 is not running on any domain, so no host is identified. So host lookup is failure, but and netcat identified that the port number FTP is open. We got this information using Nmap as well. So if you want to run only Nmap, that's also fine. If you want to make double sure, if you want to double check, then you can use telnet or netcat as well. Same, if you run this netcat on the Meta 3 also, so you will receive the information like netcat space hyphen v followed by IP address dot 130 space 21. We receive the pro FTPT information. So basically collecting the information, collecting the version information, the service information, this process is known as banner grabbing. So when we launch Nmap, our main objective is to find out the open ports, right? But we use some of the additional commands in the Nmap, like I use SV service version. But if I didn't use this command, only port information will be retrieved. So banner grabbing technique, you have multiple options available. Either you can launch Nmap with some additional flags or switches, or you can use telnet or netcat also. In all these commands, what information you will achieve, what type of service is running on FTP port, and what is the current version of that service. Once you identify the services, once you identified the running services or the port number, you can easily look up in the Google to see if any of the exploit is available or not. So I'm using Google to check out, like we have Pro FTPD. Let me recheck the version. We have Pro FTPD 1.3.5. So Pro FTPD 1.3.5. Now you can type the exploit or like say some vulnerabilities. So you will find out some of the articles, some of the walkthrough, some of the exploit codes on different applications. So I'm opening one or two results. Check it out in exploit database. We have a code available for exploiting the Pro FTPD 1.3.5 version. So we have an exploit code available, and here in the GitHub, there is a tool available which is written in Python. We can also use that code to launch the attack on this port, right? Also, we already know that to launch these kind of exploits, we have a particular exploit framework available known as MSF. So we will use that framework to launch that. But and banner grabbing is your first step to identify the service or versions, right? You can use Nmap also. We already performed Nmap, but right now we are only pen testing the port number 21. We are pen testing for port FTP. So you can launch this specific command. Basically, you are using or you are giving a specific port number to scan using Nmap. So the whole ports or the different ports will not be scanned. Only port number 21 will be scanned, and you will get the information. There is a Python script available also. You can use this Python script. So I got a message from Sachin. Sachin is saying that Pro FTPD is also open in Metasploitable 2, but on port number 21, but version is 1.3.1. Yeah. So when we run the Nmap, so what basically we are doing? We are doing the FTP penetration testing. So we know that FTP is running on port number 21 by default. But what developers do sometimes, they want attacker to not guess the correct port. So what they do, they will basically run the service on different port number. That's why we have Nmap. That's why we have Nmap to particularly scan the whole port or the complete ports. So you will know if your known service is running on different port. Like Sachin is saying that in Meta 2, the Pro FTPD is running on port number 2121. So we know that port 21 is used for FTP, but in the server, the service FTP service basically is running on different port number. So these kinds of situations can happen. So normally we do pen testing for port number 21, but if you find out that your FTP port or FTP service is running on different port number, then the exploitation process is same, but or you have to, where you need to define the port number, you will define the correct port number where your service is used, right? So I will take this scenario is also. So for Python script, you have a Python script also to perform banner grabbing, or you can write this script in Python, make a file, and here you can provide your target IP and then run this script, and your banner grabbing will be done, right? So we have four options available to perform banner grabbing. One is telnet, one is netcat, third one is nmap, the fourth one is a Python script. So whatever option you like, you can use it. We will get the exact same information from different methods. Why we have all these different methods? Suppose you say that if we can do banner grabbing using nmap, then why we need telnet or netcat or this Python script? Because see, what sometimes can happen that in your client environment, some things are restricted. You are not allowed to use nmap, or suppose you are not allowed to run any Python script. So we need to know the alternates. So for attacking also, for exploiting also, for scanning also, we have some alternates. That's why in banner grabbing, I showed you the four methods. So suppose in any infrastructure, nmap is prohibited, or telnet is not available, or suppose netcat is not available, then you can simply make this Python script, make a file with that code, and modify the IP and run this Python code. So how can you run this Python code? Let me tell you the command. So you will create a file with the vim, using vim. If you are familiar with the Linux, you can create that file using vim. Suppose you write exploit.py, then vim is opened, you copy all this code and modify the IP address, because you need to provide the IP. So where here is your target IP is written. So you can modify your IP with the target IP. Then you will save this file. After that, you will run this file as Python 3 and exploit.py. Whatever your file name, you can run this with this command. So this is your command to run that code, right? But you need to write that code first in a file. You can copy paste it, you can type it, whatever options you like, you can make this file. So once you identify the FTP ports or FTP services or version, then we need to perform the exploitation. So the very first technique is the brute force or password cracking. Basically on FTP server, as we know that FTP basically used some login functionality, login mechanism available on FTP. So somehow if we get or if we crack the password, we can easily make or establish connection with the FTP. So the very first thing you do after identify the FTP service or FTP version or FTP port, you will try to brute force it, or you will try to crack the password. So brute forcing, and if you are familiar about the brute forcing, so brute forcing is a basically method, a technique, a process where you run some of the word list to particularly guess the login credentials, like username or passwords, with some different combinations until the correct one is found. So in your system, there are multiple tools available for launching the password cracking or to launch the brute force attack or dictionary attacks as well. And one of the two most used tools we have is Hydra. Second is Medusa. Hydra is pre-installed in your system. For Medusa, I'm not sure. So let's check it out if Medusa is available in our system or Hydra is pre-installed. So you don't need to install Hydra in your system. So using Hydra or using Medusa, I'm going to crack the password for both of my labs, Meta 2 and Meta 3, on port number 21. In Meta 2, port number 21 is running VS FTPD service, or in Meta 3, port number 21 is running Pro FTPD service. So let's check out and crack the passwords. If you have any query till now, then you can ask me. So let's first check if Hydra is there. Yes, Hydra is available in your system. Suppose you are in a infrastructure, and in your infrastructure, Kali Linux is not allowed. You have to use any other Linux distribution like Ubuntu, Red Hat, CentOS, any other operating system, basically. So you need to install that Hydra. So what is the command to install Hydra? You can simply install it by apt install, then thc-hydra. This is the command to install Hydra in any other system. And if you are using Red Hat or CentOS, then the command will be yum install tsc-hydra. TSC means this Hydra tool is developed by a organization called the Hacker's Choice. So that's why the complete tool name is THC Hydra, the Hacker's Choice Hydra. This is a powerful tool for basically launching or cracking the passwords of network services. Whatever network services you have that have the login capacity like FTP, RDP, MySQL, or SSH, Telnet, all these different network services. So Hydra has the capability to brute force or launch a brute force attack on that port or on that services using some of the commands. So in Hydra, there are multiple combinations we create. Combinations like what? Suppose you don't know the username password. So that's one condition. You need to discover the username also as well as the password. What if you know the username but password is unknown? Second condition. What if you know the password but you don't know the username? Third condition. And the fourth condition, you know the username and password and want to see if they are the correct credential. So four scenario we create using Hydra. So let's first check all the commands, then I will run it. So suppose in Hydra, the very first command is both are unknown. You don't know the ID password. So in that case, what command you will use? So you will use Hydra space hyphen capital L. That means if you are using capital L, L is used to basically define the username. So capital L is used if you don't know the username. Then you have to define a word list, users word list. Word list basically a file that contains common usernames or common words. So in internet, in GitHub, in Google, you will find a multiple word list that we use to basically define the usernames, right? So you need to download that word list. Some default word lists are available in Kali Linux. So do not then we use capital P to define the password. So you can define your password word list. So in Hydra, you define the username word list, you define the password word list, then you need to define your target IP. After that, you can define your service name or port name, like FTP or whatever port you are basically breaking the password. So that's your command. Here, this is your target IP. This is your service name. When you launch Hydra, as we know, suppose in service name, I provide FTP. In service name, I provide FTP. So what Hydra will do? Hydra basically run the attack on the default port number. As Sachin is saying that FTP is also running on the port number 2121. So in that case, suppose if your service is running on different port number apart from the default port, you need to define the port as well, port number as well. So for defining the port number, you can use a option called -s. That means custom port, service port basically. So now we can define our modified port number. But you can use this option only in that case if your port is not running on the default number. As we know that in our Meta 2, port number 21 is also used. So we can launch this command on port number 21 and try to find the password. We will run it. Second option, suppose your username is known. Username is known, you don't know the password. So in that case, what command you will use? You will use small l. Then do not use the word list. You will give a username because username is known and password is not known. So you will provide the password word list. Then suppose if password is known, then you will use small p. Define your password. And if both are known and you only want to check if they are correct or not, then you will use this command. Here, your L followed by username, small p followed by the password, and all these commands or all these scenario we have in Hydra. Only one port you can use, one more option you can use in that command or add in this command is -s followed by the port number. And this option is only used if custom port is applied. If custom port is there, then you can use this to define the new port number. If you didn't define the new port number, Hydra will only run on the default port number. So now let's crack the password. You can take a screenshot if you want. Or you have any query related to this, you can ask me. These are the very simple commands you can use. So I don't think there is nothing you will not understand. So screenshots are done. Okay. So let me first tell you where all the word lists are given, right? So you can use this path, user share slash word lists. This is a directory in your Kali Linux where multiple word lists are given for different tools. Here is a section available Metasploit. So you can switch to this directory, and if you check it, multiple users, passwords are there for different services also, like HTTP default password, HTTP default usernames, Grafana default. Grafana is a service, root, Postgres, SAP module, SNMP default password, TFTP default password, Unix password, right? So you can Oracle passwords, you can use these word lists. So right now I'm using, because our Meta 2 is based on Unix, so I'm using these two word lists, Unix passwords or Unix users, right? Passwords is for password and Unix user is for Unix user. So I have to define the complete path where my word lists are stored. So now let's run the Hydra. So I'm running Hydra space hyphen because I don't know the username. So capital L, then your complete location or complete path where your word list is given. So word lists, then Metasploit, then Unix users.txt. After that, you need to define the password list. So using the option hyphen capital P, define your word list path again. After that, your IP address. So our IP address is 192.168.216. I'm launching the attack on Meta 2. So our IP is 129. After that, what service we are attacking on? So FTP. Because port is custom, we are running on the default port. So I'm not using the custom, basically not defining the custom port. So now let's launch the attack. Attack is successful and we got the login ID password for our FTP service. So Hydra is a very fast brute forcing tool we have. You can use this tool to basically guess the password of multiple network protocols, networking protocols. Hydra supports 50 plus protocols that you can launch your attacks on. Just you need to change just the service name. That's it. Suppose you are launching the attack on SSH or RDP or MySQL or VNC, then you just need to change the service name. All other options will be same, right? What if I know the username? So let me correct the command. So I know the username. So now I can provide hyphen L and the username, which is MSF admin, and the password I don't know. Let's assume we don't know the password and we can launch the attack again and we got the credential, right? So you can see our target successful, our attack is successfully completed, one valid password found. So this is the correct ID password for FTP service. What if we launch the attack on Meta 3? So we need to change the IP address, which is 130. So let's see if Hydra is able to find the password for Meta 3, which is running FTP. The port is open, but the service is Pro FTPD. Now it is attacking on port number 21. And if your attack got successful, you will receive the information about the ID password. And if not, then you need to change the word list. Sometimes what can happen, suppose you are using a word list and you are using normal common one, but that word list doesn't contain or doesn't have the proper words that possibly a developer can use, then in that case, Hydra is not basically able to find the password because Hydra is running on the word list. If your word list is strong, then the chances of finding the password will increase. So on the internet, you can simply search the FTP usernames word list or the Linux usernames word list or Unix word list, whatever service you are attacking on, like VS FTPD server word list. So multiple GitHub repos are there, and you can easily download some word list over from GitHub, right? So right now, attack is currently happening, and it will take some time to correctly guess the password, basically creating some combinations. So around these combinations will be tried. 1,69,680 combinations will be tested, right? So I'm aborting this command and now running the Medusa. Medusa is also one of the most used network login cracker tool. And why we choose Medusa over Hydra? Because Medusa has the speed and modularity, right? So let me see if Medusa is available. Yes, Medusa is available in your system. So you can launch it. So what are the commands we have for Medusa? So first, let me write the commands for Medusa. So the commands are same, not mm, much different from Hydra. So we write Medusa space hyphen H. That means host. So you need to define your target IP here. After that, hyphen U. Here you will define your username, or suppose you don't know the username, you want to define the word list. So you will choose capital U, then your user word list. After that, hyphen capital P, your password word list. Then you will use hyphen capital M for defining the service name. So what service we are attacking on? So we are attacking on FTP. This is your command for Medusa. Here, H is used for host. H is used for host, and U is used, capital U is used for word list. Capital P is also used for word list, but password word list. And M is used for defining the network service or network protocol or network service, whatever you say. This is your command for Medusa. You can create combinations of this command like we do in Hydra. If you know the username, then use small u. If you know the password, then use small p. And if you know the both things, then or only want to check if your login credentials are correct, then you can use small u and small p, right? Uh, Take a screenshot if you want. Done. So let's create an attack on first Meta 2. So Medusa space hyphen H 192.168.216.129. After that, hyphen capital U. I'm using the same path, user share word list, then meta exploit, and then Unix users, right? After that, we need to define the password word list. So capital P, using the same path, user share word lists, meta exploit Unix passwords, and hyphen capital N and FTP. This is your command. Let's run it. And we got MSF admin, success. He is trying to check if another password is available or not. So basically, Medusa will not stop if you get a correct password. Medusa will try to look for another options. Sometimes multiple user accounts are created. So in that case, multiple passwords can be found, right? So Medusa and Hydra, these are the two common tools we have. If suppose in any system Hydra or Medusa is not available, then there are some another password cracking tools are available, and the common ones are John Ripper, Cain and Abel. These are the different tools we have. But Medusa and Hydra is the most used ones, and their performance is very fast. So that's why we use both of them. Suppose I launch this attack on Meta 3. So let's give me the IP 130. So combinations are multiple combinations are Medusa is trying. And if we got any successful, then we know the ID password, right? So that's your task for today also. You need to find out the correct password, correct ID password for Meta 3. If you are already installed Meta 3 in your system, in your virtual machine, then you will launch the Hydra or Medusa. You can choose in between, but I need the ID password for Meta 3, because in Meta 2 I already exploited. You see the ID password. So your job is to identify the password of Meta 3 using Medusa or Hydra. Got it? So first you need to install Meta 3 in your system. So I think we all know the installation process. You can simply download it with Google and import it in VMware. Any query till now? I hope you are getting the things right. Anyone has any query issue? If something is not clear, if some command is not clear to you, anything you can ask me. There is no can we move on?
Yeah.
Okay. So once we crack the password, so suppose you are testing a machine, you are testing a server, you are testing a network, and your brute forcing is done. Now, what defense mechanism you can use of these kinds of brute force attack? Basically, what mitigation or what remediation you can suggest to the developers or to the server admin, that what defenses he can take against brute force attack? Because an attacker can easily brute force the passwords if ports are open. Basically, any of the port. But right now we are only checking the FTP. So we considered FTP. So if FTP port is all open and brute force attacks can happen, then what you can suggest to them, one is use some strong passwords, right? Do not use the default ones. Second, rate limitation. Rate limitation is particularly a process or a technique that is applied on the servers to basically lock or to prevent attacks on the system. So using rate limiting, if rate limiting is applied and an attacker tried to attack on the network port, he will receive failed errors or some server errors. So basically rate limit will protect you and lock out your accounts after failed attempts, right? Also, you can use two-factor authentications as well. 2FA is the solution, but the main solution is using some strong passwords. So basically, if you create a combination of alphanumeric plus special characters, then the chances are high that an attacker will not guess your passwords. So one thing is done, banner grabbing. On FTP, you will identify the banner grabbing, then you will launch the brute force. Now, what you can do next, you can try to log in with the anonymous authentication. On FTP port, on FTP service, a anonymous logins also allowed without any valid credentials. So you can try out this activity as well, right? So what is anonymous authentication? So in anonymous FTP login allows basically users to log in into an FTP server without any valid credential. So we use anonymous is as a username and no password is required. So let's try this anonymous login or anonymous authentication testing on our machine. What command you will use to try this attack? You will use FTP command. FTP is also a command in your system that basically initiate a connection with your target, right? So you can use that authentication, anonymous authentication attacks or exploitation as well after your port is open on the server side. So let's try out. So what command you will use? You will use FTP followed by your IP address that you need to test for. So 192.168.216.129. I'm choosing the Meta 2 one. He will connected to the FTP is connected to the target. Now it is asking for the name. So I will write or I will provide the name here is anonymous. Right? Anonymous. As anonymous authentication doesn't require any password, but here it is asking the password. So I'm giving anonymous as the password, and you will see login is successful. The remote system is Unix, and we are now able to transfer the files that is available on the FTP server. You can check out with some FTP commands, like if you are able to run those commands. Now you can easily uh, transfer files because connection is initiated. You are uh, in the FTP server. If you know the correct FTP commands, then you can easily pull out or retrieve some files if some files are available. But this is a testing lab, so no files are stored, right? So that is our third strategy to check the FTP port. First, banner grabbing. Banner grabbing is basically used for uh, getting the information. Then you can launch the brute force attack. Suppose your brute force won't work, then you will launch the anonymous authentication attack. If that is also not available, then in next what you will do, let's see. So when you launch the anonymous authentication, So the risk that is associated with authentication is if it is misconfigured and anonymous FTP login are allowed, what attackers can do, attackers can view some sensitive files as we can retrieve some data. We can upload some malicious files onto the server as well that leads to defacement or using some or spreading some malwares as well on the target system, right? So what defense mechanism you can use? You can disable anonymous logins on the server side or limit access. Like you can read access is allowed. You can grant read-only access onto the files, or only non-sensitive files are available. After that, you will try remote access vulnerabilities on FTP port. So in that section, you need to launch the exploitation. You need to launch the exploitation using MSF. And once the exploitation is completed, you are basically connected with the machine using FTP service. And then you can retrieve or execute some commands over there. So I'm going to explore the Meta 3 and Meta 2 both using MSF. So see how we can exploit these remote vulnerabilities. So as we know, in Meta 3, Pro FTPD is open and the version is 1.3.5. And in Meta 2, VS FTPD is open and the port number is 2.3.4. So we are going to launch MSF first. First I'm attacking on Pro FTPD. After that, I will attack on VS FTPD. So to launch the attack, we need to start our MSF console. Once your console is open, you can search for the exploits using search command for Pro FTPD, or you can also define the version as well if any of the exploit is available in MSF. So I'm searching search space Pro FTPD, and we have the version 1.3.5. So we got one matching modules, one exploit. Let's use that exploit. So use exploit /Unix /FTP /Pro FTPD mode copy execution. Enter it. Always remember, when a exploit is used, one payload is defined as a default payload. So every exploit basically use one payload, and that's the default payload we have. But we have some more compatible payloads as well. If you want to see the compatible payloads, you can run the command show payloads. Here is your compatible payloads. We have total 13 payloads, compatible payloads we have. So first, I will try the attack using this payload. And if this won't work, I will change the payload to some another payload, right? So we have to try with the one by one. Whatever payload work, I do not know. So exploit is defined, payload is configured. Let's check the requirements using show options command. So here we need to first define the R host. Any other thing we need to define? No. So let's define the R host 192.168.216.130, right? Set site path Why I'm using this side path? Because here this path is wrong. Because when if you are familiar with the Apache system or any of the web server system, the files are stored in the directory of /var /www/html. But here the directory defined is /var /www. HTML directory is missing. So that's why I need to modify that path. So /var /www/html. Exploit is done, payload is done, the requirements are done. Now let's exploit it. Connected with the server, sending some commands, and command session shell one open. Now you are in the machine, and if you execute some commands, your command will basically retrieve some data. So if I run if config here, see, I run the ls, so all the commands are available, right? I will exploit it again. So we can write the if config as well. So your connection is basically created, right? That's how a FTP port is exploited. Whatever service is running over there, whatever version you have, you can simply search for the available exploits in your meta exploitable MSF, right? And you can launch the attack. What if you want to launch this attack on the Meta 2, basically on VSFTPD? So let's check out the scenarios for VSFTPD as well. So first, I'm searching the VSFTPD version. We have 2.3.4. We have a exploit. Use that exploit. VSFTPD 2.3.4. A payload is chosen. Let's check out the requirements. We need to provide the R host 192.168.216.129. Let's check if we have to define any other thing. Nothing is available. So exploit. Connection is created and you are inside in system. You are basically opened a shell. You can launch the command if config to check if connections are there. You can run any command. Want to check the system ID, the whoami command, or the date command, any command you will run. If command is permitted, then you will get the information. So once you exploit the vulnerabilities, all things are done. You can simply retrieve the data, you can control the server, and what defense mechanism you can use. You can basically patch the outdated version or regularly update your FTP servers for the latest version. And you can use segmentations also, like isolate your FTP service from critical network assets. Basically, not run your FTP servers on your critical network assets to reduce the impact of a compromise. But that's not the particular solution. The solution is the patch management. Because suppose if you separate your FTP services from your network assets, then somehow attacker will make a connection and try to compromise the network. But that's not the complete solution. So patch management is the solution you can suggest to the developers or the deployers. What alternative you can use? You can use a FTP secure channel, and you can use SFTP as well, right? So that's our FTP penetration testing, right? You can check one more time. First, we use banner grabbing using FTP. So Netcat is used, and using Netcat, we check out the version of our FTP, the service that is running on. Using Telnet, we identify the services and version. There is one more option. You can use curl also. Curl is also provide you the command or the information. So you can use this option or this command as well. Curl space -v and FTP colon double slash followed by your target IP. So in curl also, you will receive the information about the service version, like see in the screenshot here. After that, you can launch your Metasploit, and okay, this one more thing I need to tell you. Metasploit, MSF is also have the option to perform the banner grabbing. So you can use this module, auxiliary module, to scan basically the FTP services. So let's use these also on our system, and then we can launch the attack using Hydra, using Medusa, or you can use the anonymous FTP logins or potential remote access, right? So that's your scenario for FTP testing. So I will now show you these commands also, like how you can perform banner grabbing using MSF. This document will be shared to you, so you can take a references, and you have the recordings as well, so you can try your hands on. But I hope you prepared your lab. So if anyone not particularly set up the lab, let me know if you need any help to set up the lab. So if you want to perform the banner grabbing using MSF console, so launch the MSF console. Use the auxiliary slash scanner slash FTP version. Set R host, or you can check with the show options as well, like what requirements you need to define. So I need to define the R host requirement, right? So set R host space 192.168.216.129. I'm giving the IP of Meta 2. Now you can run this, and you will receive the version information. So there are multiple methods basically to check out the versions. There is one more banner grabbing techniques you can add up, like Telnet, Netcat, Nmap, curl, MSF, Nmap, right? These are the different methods we have to identify the service names. You have a Python script also.